ladies and gentlemen, rise and shine to the morning momentum, your daily dose of a comprehensive rundown of the top stories making the headlines. Today is 1st of November 2024, a day that goes down in history as one of those that the presidency gets to have a second in command in just the first term in office. We are talking about Professor Abraham Kithure Kindiki, who is going to be sworn in today as the second deputy president of Kenya Kwanza administration, just in their first term in office. So that said, let's take a look at the top stories making the headlines on the papers this morning. The hashtag on X is the morning momentum at Younib MEDIA TV at Alfonsoh Albakwekwe. My name is Alfonsoh. Let's take a look at the Daily Nation. Second in command. Now, Professor Abraham Kithure Kindiki, a former teacher of law, is set to occupy the second most powerful office in the country after the noisy and messy ouster of Mr. Rigathi Gachagua. This is after the High Court decision yesterday afternoon to remove the last hurdle on his way to taking oath of office. The story is beefed up for you on page 2 and page 3 of the Daily Nation this morning. He will be sworn in at a public function that starts at 10 a.m. KICC in Nairobi. Now, also inside the Daily Nation this morning on page 7, Gachagua's fight for survival. The impeached deputy president is a man battling for his political life after the High Court lifted the conservatory orders yesterday, paving way for swearing in of nominee Kithure Kindiki. On page 5 this morning on the Daily Nation, Acting Interior CS gazetted. In his first assignment as the acting minister, Musalia Mudavadi declares today a national holiday. That is the first assignment he undertook as, the acting cabinet secretary for Interior. On page 7 this morning, mixed reactions over a ruling. The High Court's decision to lift the order of barring the swearing in of Kithure Kindiki received with mixed reactions. We'll take a look at that in a short while. In the international scene, U.S. polls and ramifications for Kenya. From today, read incisive analysis of the American presidential elections scheduled for November 5th. On page 10 this morning, tribute to Professor Karega Mutahi, the man who chose his destiny. The former permanent secretary exemplified resilience and adaptability in a landscape often marred by political intrigue. So let's get up close and candid with the Daily Nation this morning. On page 2, it's all about the DP inauguration. Now, second in command, court clears the way for Kithure Kindiki. Now, the High Court judges say they have the jurisdiction to hear the petitions against Gachagua's impeachment. Professor Kindiki's swearing in had been halted following orders issued by the High Court in Kirinyaga. This is a top story making the headlines on page 2 of the Daily Nation this morning. Now, let's take a look at that. Professor Abraham Kithure Kindiki, a former teacher of law, is set to occupy the second most powerful office in the country after the noisy and messy ouster of Mr. Rigathi Gachagua. This is after the High Court decision yesterday afternoon to remove the last hurdle on his way to taking the oath of office. For a man born in the remote parts of Tharaka Nithi County some 52 years ago, Professor
Je, wewe ni mfanyabiashara katika sekta ya elimu, afya bora, usafiri ama unamiliki kampuni yoyote ile? Ungependa kupata fursa ya kutangaza biashara yako ili kuwafikia wateja zaidi? Usikonde. Runinga ya Younib inakupa fursa ya kupeperusha matangazo kuhusu bidhaa na huduma unazotoa kwa bei nafuu. Kwa maelezo zaidi, wasiliana nasi kupitia nambari za simu 0750344700 ama kupitia barua pepe marketing@younibtv.com. Jinyakulie leo. Younib TV, ever the best.
Apologies for that technical hitch. Let's move on and take a look at page 3 on the Daily Nation this morning. Ex-CS was destined for top post. Now, Mount Kenya politicians had voted for Professor Kithure Kindiki as UDA's presidential running mate. Outgoing Interior CS has had a long-standing relationship with President Ruto. Now, at a glance, here are some of the milestones in Professor Kithure Kindiki's life. Now, he attended Irunduni Primary School between 1980 and 1987 and Lenana School between 1988 and 1991. He then went to the university and graduated from Moi University with Bachelor's of Law LLB in 1998. He later on obtained a Master's of Law, that is LLM, from the University of Pretoria in 2000. And later on earned his PhD in international law from the University of Pretoria in 2002. And then thereon he moved on and lectured in law at Moi University between 2000 and 2003, and the University of Nairobi between 2003 and 2011. Also at the UN, he served as the head of a department of the public law between 2005 and 2007 and associate dean of the School of Law from 2007 to the year 2010. During his academic career, he was on various occasions visiting lecturer at the University of Budapest, that is in Hungary, the University of Sao Paulo in Brazil, and the University of Pretoria in South Africa. He has published over 30 books and academic articles in peer-reviewed journals. He represented President William Ruto at the International Criminal Court between 2012 and 2015, and in March 2013 he was elected the Senator of Tharaka Nithi County. Between 2013 and 2017, he served as the first Senate Majority Leader. And in 2017, he was re-elected as Tharaka Nithi Senator and served as Deputy Speaker of the Senate for 3 years. So this is just a brief autobiography for Professor Kithure Kindiki. Let's move on and take a look at page 4. Kenyans welcome new DP as Kindiki replaces Gachagua. Attorney General Dorcas Oduor faulted the orders issued by the High Court in Kirinyaga on grounds that they were final in nature with far-reaching implications and could result in a constitutional crisis. Invitations were sent to parastatal chief executive officers and chairpersons of state corporations by head of public service Felix Koskei. You want to catch up with more of those insights on page 4. Now, this is still all about the DP inauguration, comprehensively covered for you on page 4 and page 5 of the Daily Nation this morning. Let's move on and take a look at page 6. Gachagua's lawyers say fight is still on. Now, impeached DP's lawyers had told Court of Appeal that lifting orders would render their appeal moot. Now, state and parliament lawyers praised judges, saying they properly interpreted constitutional provisions. Now, the impeached Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua's recourse now lies with the Court of Appeal, as he hopes to overturn the decision of the High Court clearing the way for Professor Kithure Kindiki to be sworn in. His earlier quest to have the appellate court hear his application and stop the High Court from delivering the ruling was dashed when the judges adjourned the matter, when it became apparent that most of the parties in the case had not been served with the appeal. That story is beefed up for you on page 6. On page 7 this morning, court ruling on DP draws both criticism and support. Now, Kenyans across the country keenly followed the court proceedings, and politicians from across the board hailed the decision, saying it was long overdue. You want to catch up with more of that on page 7 as well. The High Court's decision to lift the order barring the swearing in of Professor Kindiki as Kenya's next DP was received with mixed reactions across the country. There were celebrations at the Induruni village, the rural home of Professor Kindiki, as residents anticipated his swearing in following the court's decision. Now, away from the DP inauguration on page 8 of the Daily Nation this morning, NMG journalist Gaitho Otieno honored. Steve Otieno credits the pleasant surprise to teamwork and support from the editors. Gaitho was awarded the Lifetime Achievement by IGAD in Ethiopia. That story is briefed up for you on page 8. Now, let's move on and take a look at page 10. Kerega Mutahi, the man who chose his destiny. This guy was the professor who never passed through the traditional secondary schooling. With Gakara, Wawanjau, and Ngugi wa Thiong'o, they started developing the writing of standard Gikuyu language. Now, this is after he passed on, and we pass on our condolences to the family and friends of Kerega Mutahi. He died at 67. Now, let's move on and take a look at more stories on the Daily Nation this morning. That lands us to the expert opinion on page 17. Improving breast cancer outcomes is possible, but it requires a collective effort. Now, intensive research and medical advances have made breast cancer one of the most treatable types of cancers, but late diagnosis for patients in Africa makes positive outcomes less likely compared to developed countries. The just ended month of October is set aside as the Breast Cancer Awareness Month, intended to elevate discussions and explore preventive, diagnostic, and treatment solutions. That story is beefed up for you on page 17. Harness power of local women for sustainable peace. Now, communities are often at the heart of conflict, and women in these spaces possess the insights and resilience necessary to create lasting peace. Yet, traditionally, their voices have been marginalized in formal peace and security structures. Over the past decade, United Nations, women, and the government of Finland have worked together to promote gender equality and foster sustainable peace in Kenya. That story is beefed up for you on page 17. Now, let's move on and take a look at more stories for those who love the DN2. The Voice article is beefed up for you this morning, and today it's all about living under the sun, a struggle with albinism. There is the extraordinary story of 3 mothers and entrepreneurs battling with the effects of climate change against the impossible odds. You will catch up with that on the DN2 The Voice article. Now, let's take a look at more opinions here. U.S. presidential elections have major implications for Kenya and the whole of Africa. Now, voters in the United States will cast their votes on November 5th, just 4 days from today, to elect their 47th president, although some states have electoral laws that allow early voting, both by mail and in person. American voters who work outside the country, such as diplomatic and military agents, are also allowed to mail in their votes, some of which would be counted even after the actual voting day, depending on the obtaining electoral laws of the various states. Now, it remains to be seen whether the next administration will give sufficient attention to Africa, particularly Kenya, without the usual hubris that often characterizes U.S. policy towards the continent. Those are expert opinions on page 19 of the Standard this morning. On page 20, let's take a look at the letter of the day. Let us all support the Varsity Drama Festivals. Now, the countdown to the University Drama Festival has begun, with Egerton University set to host this national event from November 8th to 16th. The festival, initiated by the Ministry of Education, was designed with a larger vision in mind to foster national unity through the arts, to give students and trainers a like chance to showcase their talents and to ultimately contribute to building Kenya's creative industry and economy. That is briefed up for you on page 20. Let's shift gears and take a look at county news on the Daily Nation this morning. We start with Meru County. Thieves' descendants lay claim to 42,000-acre land. Now, part of the land was also given to cattle herders in the area. Claimants say the land was given to them by the lands minister, and Jane. That story is beefed up for you on page 20. Let's stay there a little bit and take a look at the following counties briefly. We start with Baringo. Crisis looms as doctors strike. Now, the doctors have downed their tools over the failure by the county government to implement their collective bargaining agreement. The more than 65 doctors led by the North Rift Kenya Medical Practitioners Pharmaceuticals and the Dentist Union Secretary General Kiamonzi Mulei cited lack of promotions and confirmations as some of the issues. The medics had issued a one-week strike notice on October 18th. That story is still beefed up for you on page 23. In Nairobi County, ward representative clears air on assistance. A ward rep has faulted Kenyans who accuse leaders of neglecting following disasters. In a phone interview, Reuben Ward Representative Scholastica Mudhoni said that the Nairobi County has a disaster kitty, yet residents expect help from their leaders. She added that there is process to be followed before aid is disbursed from the kitty. Now, on youth matters still in Nairobi County, youth sent away for lack of tools. There was drama at Kayaba Chief's office in Akuva area after dozens of youth under the Climate Works program were turned away for reporting to work without tools. The angry youth shouted and booed local leaders and the area chief Edwin Murunga. That is a top story making the headlines on page 23. Also, still on page 23, Western tourism actors seek to increase visitor numbers. Now, tourism actors in the Western region are struggling to unlock the area's potential ahead of the festive season. Stakeholders have teamed up as they seek ways to boost traffic to tourism attraction sites and enhance the hospitality infrastructure, which is one of the main challenges affecting the sector. Let's move on to page 24 and take a look at more county news. Now, we start again with Bomet on this page. Farmers urge KTDA to end theft of green leaf. Produce of farmers who complain is rejected by weighing clerks. Agency says it has installed anti-tampering technology in weighing scales across Kenya. Now, also Deputy Governor nominee rejected. The County Assembly of Lamu has rejected Deputy Governor nominee James Gichu. The motion for Mr. Gichu's approval was tabled in the House by Majority Leader and Kiunga Ward Representative Bwana Mohamed Bwana on Wednesday afternoon. After discussions, Speaker Azhar Ali Mbarak called for an open vote without debate on the nominee. That story is beefed up for you on page 24. Also on page 24, displaced families battle police officers and a private developer in Nyandarua. Internally displaced persons, IDPs, confronted police officers and a suspected land grabber in Umoja, Mbuyu, Nyandarua County yesterday. The developer had arrived with the heavily armed officers to evict the IDPs from the 30-acre piece of land given to them by the government after the 2007-2008 post-election violence. Now, let's shift gears and take a look at the international news that lands us in the United States. Neck and neck. U.S. braces for election conspiracy theories. Trump has repeatedly damned on his supporters' lies about his win in 2020. One of the greatest fears of election officials is a razor-close outcome. Now, with the U.S. elections just days away, officials in the most competitive states are bracing themselves for misinformation, conspiracy theories, threats, and possible violence. In Philadelphia, Detroit, and Atlanta, three of former President Donald Trump's favorite targets for false claims of voter fraud, authorities have fortified their operations against a repeat of the 2020 chaos. The ballot counting warehouse in Philadelphia is now surrounded by fencing trooped with barbed wire. In Detroit and Atlanta, election offices have bulletproof glass. That story is beefed up for you on page 25. Let's take a look at Kampala. Assailants kill 8 in Uganda. Now, assailants suspected to belong to a cult attacked Musizi village in Kagadi district in Uganda on Tuesday night and killed 8 people, police said on Wednesday. The attackers entered the village around 9 p.m. Now, in Kinshasa, no survivors in DRC copter clash. No crew member survived the crash of a military helicopter in Kinshasa, the capital of DR Congo, on Wednesday, according to the local media, citing the DR Congo's Airway Authority. Military sources on the ground said the helicopter crashed on the runway of Ndolo Airport around 11 a.m. The pilot, the co-pilot, and the technician, who were expatriates, died, according to the journalist. The pilot was strapped in his seat and died on the spot. The other 2 died on their way to hospital, according to General Faye Ngama, a commander of the military. That story is beefed up for you on page 25. Also, Africa Health Tech Summit in Rwanda explores reshaping care. Now, the Africa Health Tech Summit opened in Kigali, Rwanda on Tuesday, with a call for medical professionals and innovators to build resilience using technology. The 3rd edition of the Africa Health Tech Summit, running from October 29th to 31st, drew ministers of health and ICT innovators and professionals. Now, let's take a look at business news quick fast. 1 million Kenyans sink into poverty on slow jobs growth. Reports contraction in agriculture choked employment creation. The trend reverses earlier year when similar number had ducked clutches of paucity. Now, in 2022 is the year when the survey was done, with the possibility that the situation could have changed since then. Also, KCB to sell Mavoko land taken over from EAPCC. KCB Bank has put on the market a parcel of land that it took over from the East Africa Portland Cement Company as part of a deal to settle a debt. The piece, located in Mavoko, Machakos County, measures more than 2,000 acres. That story is beefed up for you on page 26. Briefly, in the hospitality industry, Java expands with 3 new branches. Restaurant chain Java House has opened 3 new branches as part of an expansion drive. The latest additions are located in Thika, Keno, and Kitusuru, and the Kisumu International Airport. Also, DTB picks new chief executive for Kenyan unit. Now, the Diamond Trust Bank has appointed Murali Natarajan as its managing director as part of reorganizing of its parent firm DTB Group, which is listed on the Nairobi Security Exchange. Also, in matters data privacy, digital lender Azura in second privacy breach. Azura Credit Limited, trading as TruePesa, has been found capable of second data privacy breach in less than 2 months. The Data Protection Commissioner, Mercy Kasait, warned the firm to stop harassing employees of an unnamed company over loan taken by one of their colleagues. Now, let's move on and take a look at sports news on the Daily Nation this morning. 2,000 golfers to battle for glory at a vet lab. Now, stiff competition expected in the 11th edition of Sweet Banana event. The new winner to be crowned in the absence of 2023 champ. That is all about golfing. In matters volleyball, Pipeline fire warning shot after beating rivals Prisons. Kenya Pipeline coach Geoffrey Omondi says speed played a part in their hard-fought 3-2 win over perennial rivals Kenya Prisons as the 2024-2025 Kenya Volleyball Federation National League season got underway at the Kamkunji grounds in Nyeri County yesterday. In matters rugby, All Blacks coach defends haka. New Zealand coach Scott Robertson has defended his team's pre-match haka after England prop Joe Marler stroked up the tension ahead of tomorrow's Twickenham clash by saying, quote-unquote, it was ridiculous and needs binding. Marler, who is not involved in tomorrow's match and has left the England camp for personal reasons, posted his comments on social media Tuesday, briefly deleted his account and then reinstated it, saying he had been trying to, quote-unquote, stroke interest, end of quote. Now, let's take a look at page 34. This is the 2024 FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup. Football, Dominicans mad about baseball. Now, sports shops in Santo Domingo filled with baseball and basketball merchandise. The Dominican Republic may be hosting the 2024 FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup, but football is one of their least followed sports. The king sport here is baseball, with basketball a close second. You want to catch up with more of those insights on page 34. On page 35 this morning, Firat tinkers with Stars squad ahead of South Sudan return match. Kenya's home fixture on Sunday at Mandela Stadium in Kampala. Now, that is the 2025 CHAN qualifiers. You'll take a look at that on page 35. Still there, Van Nistelrooy hopes to remain at Manchester United. Manchester United interim manager Ruud van Nistelrooy said he would like to remain part of the club's restructured management team once a permanent replacement for Eric Ten Hag is appointed. The former United striker got his team off to a victorious start in the post-Ten Hag era with an entertaining 5-2 League Cup victory over Leicester City in the League Cup on Wednesday. That story is beefed up for you on page 35. Lastly, on the cover page of the Daily Nation this morning, school managers held over fake KPSEA papers. Prosecutors suggest counseling to help traumatized pupils. Lawyers plead with court to release director, saying she is asthmatic and on medication. You want to catch up with that story on the cover page of the Daily Nation this morning. 23 is the number of pupils who sat fake Kenya primary school education assessment papers at Silverbell Academy on the outskirts of Eldoret in Uasin Gishu County. Now, with that story of fake papers of KPSEA, we come to the end of the morning momentum this morning, the 1st of November 2024. All eyes are set at the KICC, and we shall be following that, and we shall give you updates on what is happening at KICC. Remember, it is a day when Kenya is swearing in the second deputy president in the first term of the Kenya Kwanza administration. Professor Abraham Kithure Kindiki takes over as the new second in command. Thank you so much for choosing to stay with the morning momentum and for the tremendous support you give us here at Younib TV. Extension of gratitude also goes to all those who made this broadcast a success. The Chief Controller Anifa, Kavira, and Raphael Wangila behind the lens. I have been your host, Alfonsoh. Bye-bye for now.